I started this journey about a year and a half ago when Barack Obama started speaking, giving presentations, campaigning. And the moment he opened his mouth, I was in shock. I thought, here we go again. It's a nightmare that continues. I'm back where I started, and that's in a communist totalitarian regime. As I could hear him speak, I can hear all of the signs of a communist totalitarian leader. But aside from that, there was something else very troubling, and that's the fact that Barack Obama absolutely refused to provide any vital records showing that he is indeed legitimate for the position that he wants to hold. And that's the most powerful position in the world. So I started getting emails. I was very active before the campaign, trying to reach people, trying to explain to them that what is coming and what is promised to them, it's not what is going to really happen. For example, I could hear Barack Obama telling people, I will create 3 million jobs. I want a show of hands. How many have seen those created 3 million jobs? 0. As a matter of fact, now we know that we've been losing every month during the year of Obama's presidency, 500,000, 600,000 jobs every month. So I'm guessing we lost about 5 million jobs, and that's officially. And knowing the government, what do you know? You take the unofficial numbers, multiply it by 2, and then maybe you figure out what's really happening. We lost millions of jobs. We know that there wasn't a word of truth in what he was saying. And of course, he promised transparency. He stated, we will have unprecedented transparency. To me, it sounded like what I've heard from communist leaders in the Soviet Union. I knew where it's going, and sure enough, one day after Obama took office, he issued an executive order promptly sealing all of his vital records. So that was the end of transparency. So I was kind of concerned, and before the election, I was trying to reach as many people as I could, letting them know what is coming, because I've experienced that before. And I started getting information about the fact that Barack Obama indeed did not provide any of his vital records. There was a website, Texas Darling, that was one of the pioneers of this issue, and they obtained information specifically that Barack Obama never presented his original birth certificate. And of course, I was hounded and defamed by media time and again, where, as you've seen, some of those reports on TV, they yelled and screamed at me and put in front of me this birth certificate saying, here, he presented, without giving me an opportunity to respond that what he presented to the public was nothing but a piece of garbage. That was not an original birth certificate. That was a short version certification of live birth that was issued only in 2007, which had nothing. It did not, if you look at it, at this piece of garbage, what did it have? Nothing. It did not show the name of the attending physician. It did not show the name of the hospital. It did not show any signatures. A 5-year-old probably could create something better than that. I mean, it's a very minimal document. It did not provide any important information, specifically in light of the fact that the state of Hawaii is quite different from all the other states in the Union. As you know, Hawaii became the last state in the Union, the 50th state, only in 1959, only 2 years before Obama was born. And we know it's an island state. Children are born there quite often at home with midwife, so they allow one to get a birth certificate, they have a statute, 338-5, that allows one to get a birth certificate based on a statement of one relative only. They also have a statute, 338-17, and that a statute that allows a foreign-born child of, is it better? Should I hold it? Would allow a foreign-born child of Hawaiian resident to get a Hawaiian birth certificate, meaning a person can be born in Kenya, in Indonesia, on planet Mars. As long as the parent was a resident of the state of Hawaii for at least 1 year, he's entitled to get Hawaiian birth certificate. Now, why do they have those statutes? And by the way, statute 338-17 existed from 1970s. However, they had precursor statutes that went back to 1911. So they had those statutes for quite some time. Reason being, many Hawaiians used to work abroad. They worked in Tahiti, on Guadalcanal, and in order to preserve their Hawaiian heritage, they needed a statute like that, which would allow a foreign-born children of Hawaiian residents to get Hawaiian birth certificates. And that's what's peculiar about Hawaii. Nobody knew about it. So as I did research, and I got in touch with an attorney in Hawaii, James Hochberg, he forwarded to me copies of those statutes. So I could see, well, there is a lot of room for fraud. In light of those facts, it was imperative to see Obama's original birth certificate, the one that is sealed in the Health Department of the state of Hawaii. And Obama, of course, refused to unseal it. How long does it take? It takes 1 minute to provide a consent. I, Barack Hussein Obama, consent to release of my original birth certificate. That's it. If a person, if you imagine for a moment, let's imagine for a moment that Barack Hussein Obama is an honest man, that he is not a fraud. So what's there to hide? Take 1 minute of your time, sign a consent, they will release the original birth certificate, and that's it. And it would show the name of the hospital, and we had a discrepancy. Some documents and some interviews stated that he was born in Queens Hospital. Recently, he decided that he was born in Kapiolani Hospital. There were reports he was born in a hospital in Kenya, Mombasa, Kenya. Nobody really knows because nobody has seen a real document. And ladies and gentlemen, if it wouldn't be Barack Hussein Obama, if it would be anybody else, and he would have tried to pull what Obama is pulling, he would not be able to get away with this. Because if you go to any court and you appear in front of any judge, can you show a computer image and say, look at it, that's enough? Of course not.
Let me just put this back here.
Okay. Okay. If, it wouldn't work. If you try to state, well, look at this abbreviated document, when there is original somewhere on file, any judge would say, if there is an original, why don't you show it, present it? It wouldn't be enough for somebody to say, for one official to say, I've seen something on file. You've seen something? Show it. Why not? If it would have been anybody else, the judge would have stated, show the document. And keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, there is no privacy here. A person needs to prove that he is a natural-born citizen. B, Barack Obama posted his birth certificate, certification of live birth that he claims is valid and proves his birth on the internet. So what's there to hide? Whatever is there on file should be identical to what he presented. So what is he hiding? The only reasonable explanation that he is committing fraud. that he is defrauding each and every one of you, that he is treating each and every one of you as a complete idiot, with total disrespect to each and every citizen of the United States of America, 305 million citizens, by arrogantly, obnoxiously refusing to unseal any of his vital records. Moreover, I am working currently with a number of licensed investigators. One of them is Mr. Neil Sankey. Mr. Sankey has a distinguished career as an elite officer of Scotland Yard, where he worked with Communist Proliferation Unit and Organized Crime Unit. He later immigrated to the United States, and he has a distinguished career here in the United States as a licensed investigator. He was able to compile from national databases, from the best-known national databases, such as LexisNexis and ChoicePoint, a list of 100 addresses all over the nation, 100 addresses of Barack Hussein Obama that are linked to 39 different social security numbers. Unbelievable. Originally, he found 25, and then later on, when we ran the database again, we were able to find 39. There are other investigators. One of them is Susan Daniels from Ohio, licensed with Department of Homeland Security, confirmed multiple social security numbers for Barack Hussein Obama that he used in different transactions. What is even more mind-boggling, social security number that Barack Hussein Obama used for most of his life, since he was about 15, 16 years old, when he started working for the first time in Baskin-Robbins in Hawaii. I remember this number by heart, 042684425. It's a number that was fraudulently obtained. We have the biggest fraud, the biggest crime perpetrated in history of this nation and possibly history of the world. And we have such massive corruption in the government that we are yet to see a judge who would have the bravery, the guts to adjudicate this matter on the merits. So far, the judges were scared to touch it, to touch this matter. They were saying, we have no jurisdiction. And don't be fooled by the thugs in the media that are telling you her cases were dismissed. Judges threw them out of court. No, no judge ever heard this case on the merits. All of them were saying either people have no standing or no jurisdiction. Nothing was heard in court yet. So what I found out that this social security number, 042684425, is the number that Barack Hussein Obama used for most of his life. And how do I know that it's a fraudulent number? How can I even disclose it? Because typically you would not disclose social security numbers. Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, the first 3 digits in social security number signify the state where the number was obtained. 042 is the social security number was assigned to the state of Connecticut. When people applied to social security number in the state of Connecticut, they got social security numbers that start with 042, and we traced numbers before, numbers after, one before, one after, state of Connecticut. Barack Hussein Obama was never resident of the state of Connecticut. Moreover, for sure, he was not resident of the state of Connecticut when this particular number was assigned, and it was between 1976 to 1977. Another interesting fact, several investigators concurred and found the same fact, interesting fact, that originally this number was issued to an individual born in 1890. Please show me, show of hands, how many people think Barack Hussein Obama was born in 1890? None. He would have been 120 years old now. Can you imagine that this fraud can be sitting in the White House? mind-boggling. And when we see so many corrupt US attorneys, when we see so many corrupt judges, so many corrupt politicians that are either too scared to take upon this issue, or too corrupt, or sold out, or looking for promotions, and they would not take on this issue, it's just unbelievable. Another interesting fact that I found, how did Barack Obama get those Social Security numbers? Where was he able to obtain them? Why wasn't he ever prosecuted? How did he know that those numbers were numbers of deceased individuals? I kept doing research, and believe me, I worked on this issue 24/7, 365 for a year and a half. I found out interesting fact that Barack Obama's grandmother, Madeleine Payne Dunham, was volunteering, was a volunteer. I'm a volunteer, she was a volunteer. That's nice. Guess where this lady decided to volunteer? You would never guess. In the probate department of Oahu Circuit Court. Well, probate department, that's where you can get Social Security numbers of deceased individuals. And you can find individuals that could have been single, no children, no grandchildren. And yeah, those are the numbers that you can use. And you can use in all kinds of financial transactions. Interesting fact, that during 2008 campaign, Obama was able to raise $700 million. Unbelievable number. Never in US history a candidate raised that much and spent that much on a campaign. And he opted out of public option. So there isn't much of a accountability and transparency when somebody is opting out of public option. McCain was part of it, but not Obama. And about half of this money, nobody knows where it came from. We have no idea. The usual explanation that we heard from Rahm Emanuel, from David Axelrod, that they had great outreach and people were giving $5 here, $10 there. Give me a break. $300 million, $5 here, $10 there. How many believe in that? Nobody. And that's what bothers me, that those people are so obnoxious. They think that every American is an idiot and cannot see how ridiculous it sounds. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when somebody has 39 different Social Security numbers according to national databases, you can raise $300 million without anybody knowing where it's coming, where it's going. That would be one way to use the money. You can do a lot of things when you have multiple Social Security numbers. That can be a source of massive financial fraud. Foundations fraud, it can be a source for fraud of nonprofit organizations, elections fraud, voter fraud, you name it. And we're yet to see governmental agencies to start investigating. And I'm giving those speeches for people to become active, to tell them, hey, you people, you officials that work with federal elections committees, with Social Security Administration, judges, US attorneys, attorney generals, district attorneys, you don't work for Obama. You work for us. This is our money. And if there are a bunch of Chicago crooks, if there are a bunch of thugs that are stealing our money, I demand that you investigate. And if you don't, then you are part of the conspiracy. Then you, US attorneys who are corrupt, you district attorneys or attorney generals, or members of corrupt media, or corrupt politicians, corrupt congressmen, corrupt senators, corrupt officials with Social Security Administration or Federal Elections Committee, you become part of criminal conspiracy. you should be investigated and prosecuted under RICO. And RICO is, of course, it deals with corrupt organizations. And ladies and gentlemen, it's up to every one of you to make sure that those crimes do not go unpunished. Just like Watergate did not go unpunished, Obamagate should not go unpunished. I remember when I lived in Russia, there was a saying there, even one soldier at the battlefield is a soldier, is a force. We have now force of one. So each one of you is a force. And you can see in my example how much one person can do. You can make a difference. And you have to do it. You have to do it for the sake of your children, for the sake of your grandchildren, to make sure that your children, that your grandchildren do not live in a totalitarian regime, that your children, that your grandchildren do not live in a country where they have no constitutional freedoms, where they have no rights, where somebody can get at the helm of the government by fraud, by obfuscation of all of his records. And corrupt governmental officials are aiding and abetting massive fraud. Corrupt thugs in the media, instead of uncovering this fraud, are attacking constitutional attorneys like me who dare to speak up, who dare to take upon crooks and demand answers. It is up to each and every one of you to make a difference. And by the way, I don't know, how many of you know that I'm now running for office? A few. Well, as of Friday, as of yesterday, I am officially a candidate on the ballot. Thank you. And I am running for the position of Secretary of State of California. And I'm running as a Republican. And just in short, I have one contender. And here again, I uncover fraud. The person that I'm running against is a former football player, Damon Dunn, who a year ago filled out a voter registration form in Orange County, California. And for the first time, he voted in May of last year, voted by absentee ballot as a Republican. And on his voter registration fraud, there is a question, question 16, that asks, did you register to vote before? And if yes, in what county, what state, and affiliated with what party? Mr. Dunn didn't put any information. So looking at his voter registration card, one would believe that he never registered and he was never affiliated with any party. Ladies and gentlemen, that's fraud, complete fraud. What did we find out? That he did register in Florida. He played for Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville, Duval County, Florida, where he registered, not only registered, he registered as a Democrat. And one of my supporters has actually contacted the registrar of voters in Duval County, Florida, and talked to one of the officials. His last name is Mr. Hollander. And Mr. Hollander stated that and confirmed that indeed Damon Dunn has registered there as a Democrat. And one of my supporters asked if he has ever written to Duval County, Florida to change his affiliation from Democrat to Republican. And the answer was no. He never changed his affiliation from Democrat to Republican. Now, California Elections Code has a statute 8001A2 that states that one cannot be affiliated to another party for at least 12 months before he officially announces his candidacy to run for office from a specific party. Well, first time Mr. Dunn became a Republican was in March of last year when he filled out, fraudulently might add, his voter registration card, and he started running as a Republican in November. Well, that was only 6 months, so he is not eligible. Talk about people not being eligible. Moreover, California Elections Code has statute 18500 that states that when somebody commits fraud in relation to filling out his voter registration card, voting, or aiding and abetting voting, he commits a crime that is punishable by $1,000 and or both imprisonment for 16 months or 2 years or 3 years. That's a crime, ladies and gentlemen, to commit such a fraud. And a person can sit for 3 years in prison for this. So it's up to all of us to make sure that we don't have any more fraud in elections. Enough is enough. I have filed a criminal complaint with the Registrar of Voters. I just talked to Mr. Neil Kelly, who is the Registrar of Voters in Orange County, California. He stated I need to forward all the information to him. And he stated that he will be forwarding this information to the District Attorney of Orange County, Mr. Tony Rakauskas, and to the Secretary of State. I did remind him that Secretary of State Deborah Bowen didn't do a thing when I reported Mr. Obama, but Mr. Kelly stated that since it's not federal, I mean, we're not talking about the president, and it's a voter fraud, they do have an investigation unit, that something will be done. Let's hope it will be. I did get a phone call from the Office of the Secretary of State. One of her attorneys said, well, let's see what is the intent of the California legislation. Maybe the intent was for him not to register as a Democrat in California. Then technically, the fact that he registered as a Democrat in Florida wouldn't be such a big deal or a big crime. I said, excuse me? What are you talking about? The whole idea of elections is one man, one vote. We've already seen buses of thugs being sent from New York to Florida. Remember 2008 election? Do you remember those buses of people coming to Ohio from Illinois and God knows where? We've seen this happening. We don't want this happening again. A person should not be registered to vote anywhere in the country more than once at any given election. That's what is important. And if the person is registering to vote and doesn't include proper information, that's a crime. And we don't want such crimes committed. And moreover, when I read about the person that's running against me, Mr. Dunn, I found out what are his qualifications to become Secretary of State. And we're talking about the most populated state in the nation, California, over 30 million people. How is he qualified to oversee legality of elections in a state with over 30 million people? Well, his qualification is the fact that he knew how to play football. He's a football player, and based on that, he got into a good university on a football scholarship. Well, that's nice. And we know that universities, even Stanford, need some football players. Does that really qualify him to be Secretary of State? I don't think so. But moreover, Secretary of State on a Republican Party ticket, excuse me, he was a Democrat until now. As a matter of fact, he's given a number of interviews to Sacramento Bee, he has given an interview to Stanford Scout, where when he was asked who is his hero, he mentioned Barack Obama. And then he was asked about Secretary of State of California, Deborah Bowen. He stated, oh, well, she did a great job in bringing more legitimacy to our elections. Excuse me? Deborah Bowen brought legitimacy to our elections? We're talking about the same lady who didn't check as much as a birth certificate. That's the one who brought legitimacy. I'm running in this election because we've got an illegitimate candidate who got in the White House. So do you really think that my contender, Damon Dunn, will do a thing to bring legitimacy to elections in the state of California? How many of you think that? Zero. Well, I need you, ladies and gentlemen, to bring this knowledge to each and every registered Republican voter. And we don't have much time because election is June the 8th. So if our officials are going to be as corrupt as Deborah Bowen was in 2008, and if they're not going to do a thing in removing him from the ballot because he's committing fraud, I'm counting on you to bring this knowledge to each and every registered Republican voter to make sure that majority of them do vote for me on June the 8th. How much time, I wanted to know, because I can talk a lot, so I need to know, Payman? 25, okay. Talking about Deborah Bowen, since we do have the election, talking about her. When I started bringing my legal actions, the first thing I did was who would I contact? The Secretary of State, Deborah Bowen. And I've written to her. At first I thought, they did the right thing. I was so naive, you wouldn't believe it. And I thought that our Secretary of State, Deborah Bowen, actually cares about the elections, whether those are legitimate or not. Was I mistaken? I've written to her and I asked for administrative action. And I said, well, can you please tell me, what did you do to check legitimacy of Barack Hussein Obama? What documents did you check? And I got an answer. And she was honest, actually. Her employee answered and said, we did nothing. Why did you do nothing? Because we are not an investigative agency. Excuse me, we are paying her, I think, $140,000 a year. And she has a whole staff of attorneys. And they want to tell me that they have no means to investigate? So why are we paying all this money? So let's just dismantle the office of Secretary of State, of each and every Secretary of State, and save ourselves millions of dollars. And we should do it in each and every state of the nation. Because in the last election, each and every Secretary of State did what is politically correct and not what is right. And nobody demanded from Obama his original birth certificate. Nobody demanded an explanation. Why is he using multiple Social Security numbers? Why is he using Social Security numbers of the deceased and numbers that were never assigned? Nobody did a thing. And when people try to ask questions, again, thugs in the media were right there at my throat, at other people's throats, yelling and screaming and calling us names. You're birthers, you are crazy birthers. Since when is it crazy to ask for a basic birth certificate? Since when is it crazy? We live in times where right is wrong and wrong is right. We live in the times where the basic constitutional freedoms that we're trying to uphold are being taken away from us, and media thugs are attacking us for demanding those freedoms. We need to attack them. We need to tell each and every one of them, you are thugs. You have no right to attack us. You should not be in the media. You should not be in the government if that's what you are doing. When answers were requested during Watergate, Were there names given to people who were demanding investigation of Watergate, what they called what, gators? No. Why am I being called a birther? You know why? Because those people have no answers. They know this is such a despicable fraud that they cannot invite me to ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, any of those channels, and have a discussion, because I have all the answers. I have the truth on my side. I have the justice on my side. They have nothing. The only thing they have on their side is the ability to call people names. The only thing they have on their side is the ability to be thugs, despicable thugs. And we need to clean our country, our environment from this thuggery in media. In media and in government. When Deborah Bowen refused to provide any answers, what could I do? I filed lawsuits. Actually, what I did, I started writing essays and articles. And I was sending those everywhere in the media. And of course, we know that our mainstream media is owned by large corporations. Corporations that own, there are a few families of billionaires, and I'm sure you know who they are, who own most of our media. And I couldn't get through. The first article that was published in Westminster Herald, which is one of the few newspapers that are still privately owned. And one of the things we need to do is demonopolize media, whereby we have Sherman Act, we have antitrust laws, and we need to enforce those as it relates to the media. So we don't have a few families dictating each and every American citizen what they're allowed to say and what they're not allowed to say, what they're allowed to think and what they're not allowed to think. We need to limit or stop influence of foreign corporations and petrodollars from Saudi Arabia and other countries on our media. As you know, when Saudi Arabia purchased, I believe, 17% of shares of Fox, there was a drastic change in Fox. They're still talking, and as I say, there's still some barking here and there. Some are better, some are worse. I think Sean Hannity is a little better. Bill O'Reilly sold out completely. But what I've noticed that since Saudi Arabia has purchased those shares of Fox, we've seen a change. They are not allowed to talk about one issue that will remove Obama out of office immediately, and that's the issue of his complete illegitimacy to US presidency. Moreover, people like Bill O'Reilly and lately Glenn Beck have attacked the ones that dared to speak about this issue. Why are they attacking? Why are they screaming? If they have truth on their side, let's have a discussion. Let's have a discussion on the merits and let the audience make their conclusions. Why Bill O'Reilly never invited me on his show? Even though his producer recorded me on camera, he has over an hour of recording. Why Glenn Beck didn't do it? I'll tell you why. Because even opposition today is controlled. Ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake about it. We have a controlled opposition. Even in Republican Party, the leadership of Republican Party, unfortunately, is controlled by the same few families that control both sides. Even in Patriot movement, I marched on Washington, and that was, of course, on September the 12th. I was there. Not one single person who wanted to talk about Obama's illegitimacy to presidency was allowed to talk. Why? Because we have controlled opposition. Because people like Andrew Breitbart, people who else is there? Well, as we know, Glenn Beck, that are seemingly in opposition are allowed to talk, but there are a couple of issues they are not allowed to talk about. And one of them is Obama's illegitimacy to US presidency. Another issue is the fact that our government in the last 17 years, and that spans several administrations, have practiced this strategy of free trade, where unbridled free trade, where we put no safeguards to American jobs, and millions of your jobs went to third world countries with near slave labor, and whereby your standard of living is going down the drain. Again, a few families of billionaires are making a few more billions. Unfortunately, we would hope that the Republican Party will stand up and state enough is enough. We need to stop this. We need to provide some safeguard to American workers and American jobs. We need to put some safeguard accounting for the differential of the standard of living here in the United States of America and in China or in India, and that was not done. Even opposition in Patriot movement, in Tea Party movement, would not allow you to talk about those issues. The two most important issues. So it is up to you to talk about A, Obama's illegitimacy, because as long as he is there, nothing positive is going to happen to this country. We're going to be going down the drain. But aside from this, we need to stand fast and tell the leadership in both parties, all the parties, enough is enough. You need to put safeguards, be it quotas, or call it quotas, call it tariffs, some types of safeguards. You cannot abandon all borders, or borders in immigration and economic borders. You cannot sell out 305 million American workers that are losing their jobs. Millions of American workers are losing their jobs, and when they lose their jobs, what happens? Very quickly, that they lose all their life savings, they lose their retirement money, they lose their ability to pay their mortgages, they're losing their homes, they become destitute, they become homeless. We've seen 10 cities under overpasses in the United States of America. I never thought I'd live to see that. This is horrific, and it's up to each and every one of you. Carry a sign, go to Washington, D.C. You can start as an army of one. People will join you. Stand in front of the White House. Stand in front of our Department of Justice that turned into Department of Injustice. Stand in front of our Department of Homeland Security that became Department of Insecurity, and tell them tell them enough is enough, put some safeguards, stop shipping away all of our jobs, or we're going to ship you away. We're going to ship your job. You're going to be out of job. And ladies and gentlemen, both parties, if they don't stand up on those two issues, they need to be voted out. New people need to come, and we need to be careful, of course, that new people are not as corrupt as the old ones. We don't want to change just for the sake of slogans, hope and change. We don't want empty slogans. We need politicians that are not corrupt, that are not selling the whole country based on what I call legalized bribery. When we have campaign contributions, when we have lobbying positions of politicians or their children, this is legalized bribery. How many of you know that Hunter Biden son of Joe Biden, has been a lobbyist for many years, making $1.8 million as a lobbyist. How many knew that? One person, two people. Well, that has to end. That's called legalized corruption, legalized bribery. This country will continue going down the drain with something like that. We need to clean up our elections. We need paper ballots, and we need patriots of this country at each and every precinct. We had massive fraud in elections. How many of you knew that in 2004, a communist dictator of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, was able to purchase controlling number of shares of Sequoia software that runs our voting machines? How many knew that? Two people knew that. We have a serious problem. Even though, I believe in 2007, Hugo Chavez was forced to sell his shares, but it's interesting, what I read is that he sold those shares to a company called Smartmatic that has close ties to Venezuela. And there was a report, interesting report, that one of the board members of Smartmatic was in a small plane. He was in an accident, in an airplane accident, and he perished. Interestingly enough, where it happened, over the skies of Caracas, Venezuela. Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, rings the bell. Another interesting fact, how many of you knew that there was tampering with passport records of leading presidential candidates last year before the election? How many of you knew that? One person. Another interesting fact, when there was tampering with those passport records, there were several suspects. One of them was a gentleman by name Lieutenant Quarles Harris. He's not actually a lieutenant, it's his name. I guess his parents were inventive, just like there is, there are those new names, Judge or Apple, his name is Lieutenant. Well, this gentleman, Lieutenant Quarles Harris, agreed to cooperate with FBI. And there was a report was made in, there was a report in Washington Times that this gentleman, Lieutenant Quarles Harris, is cooperating with the FBI. I believe that was in March of 2008, and about a month later, there was another report that this gentleman was found shot in the head, dead in his car. I tried to get information on this homicide. I'm yet to find this information. As I filed several illegal actions, I filed in, as you know, here in California, Keys et al. V. Bowen, and then Lightfoot v. Bowen, and then, of course, Keys et al. V. Obama et al. I asked for this information, and I subpoenaed records. And originally, U.S. Attorney's Office was willing to cooperate. I did get a response from Assistant U.S. Attorney here in Eastern District of California, Mr. Yoshinori Himel, that they will cooperate. And I have filed a special letter. It was filed in Sacramento in U.S. Superior Court. But yet, inexplicably, later on the case was dismissed as moot. I still don't understand how is it moot to have an illegitimate president for 4 years. It's moot. But the case was dismissed, and then I got a letter from this U.S. attorney stating that they will no longer cooperate because the case was dismissed. As you know, I have a case in Washington, D.C., and that's Taitz v. Obama. And in this case, as you know previously, I was told, and everybody was told, we have no standing to bring cases as we could not show injury. Well, I stated in my pleadings, ladies and gentlemen, and the judge in the case, I have standing. I was injured. Because as I brought those cases, I was attacked, I was intimidated, I was harassed. I had a judge in Georgia, Clay D. Land, who tried to intimidate me with $10,000 sanctions if I bring yet another case on behalf of a member of US military who needs to go to Iraq and Afghanistan and asking to see records to see if Commander-in-Chief is legitimate. This judge had the chutzpah, had the gall to tell me that this is frivolous. How many of you think that this is frivolous? Zero. Zero. Appalling, despicable. And he stated that if I bring yet another case on behalf of a member of US military, he will sanction me $10,000. I didn't actually bring another case, but I asked for a stay of deployment of my client, Captain Connie Rhodes, a flight surgeon, pending reconsideration. And this judge slapped me with $20,000 sanctions, which I am appealing right now. So I stated to the judge in Washington, D.C., Royce Lambert, Your Honor, I was injured. I was slapped with $20,000 sanctions for being a constitutional lawyer and caring about constitutional rights of members of U.S. military. You know, if constitutional lawyers are intimidated with sanctions, who will be there to stand up for your rights? Then anything can happen. Then anything can happen to each and every one of you. God forbid, what if Ms. Janet Napolitano, who thinks that US Army veterans are more dangerous than radical Muslim terrorists, will decide that you are a dangerous terrorist, and she decides to detain you under Patriot Act? Who will be there to defend you and your freedoms? Or you? Nobody. So I told the judge I was injured. And what happened lately is absolutely despicable. Is I decided to run for the position of Secretary of State. Not only I got daily death threats, I still have on my cell phone a message from somebody stating, the best thing you can do for America is slit your wrists, you effing bitch. That's what I'm getting. I went to police, I went to FBI, I'm yet to see any help from them. I got a message.
Not only was he dumb, he was blind.
Yeah, yes. Moreover, I've been getting threats on my website. Somebody has written, I will shoot you myself and I will burn your body for the whole world to see. Shortly thereafter, there was a warning signal in my car. And when I took the car to Mission Viejo Motors to check, they showed that actually somebody took off a clamp and disconnected the fumes emissions hose, whereby combustible hot fumes, instead of getting out of the car, were going back to the engine. It's dangerous. My whole family is in that car. Luckily, we caught it timely. And lately, what they did was absolutely despicable. Somebody has found my children's email addresses on Facebook and sent despicable messages to my 3 children, to my husband who is here, and my 3 children. And they were writing, you poor kid, your mom will be thrown in prison. Your mom will be thrown in a mental hospital. Moreover, somebody paid a deranged artist, quote unquote artist, who came up with a series of paintings titled Bertha Orly Taitz, where they painted me absolutely nude with my legs spread, giving birth, holding a bloody placenta with blood gushing out of it. And those thugs sent this garbage to my 3 children. They posted it on the internet. just to intimidate me, to harass me by intimidating my children, to try to pressure me to withdraw from this race. Ladies and gentlemen, please, don't let those thugs win. We can't let those animals win. You know what? Those are not even human beings. Maybe they are beings, but are they human? You know, human means humanity. Those animals have no humanity. And those are thugs in our media, those are thugs in our government, in our different agencies. Please, don't let them win. And I am counting on each and every one of you. I've given my bios, and those bios provide information of my website, information, my phone number, my email address, so you can contact me. I need your help, each and every one of you. I'm working 24/7, 365, and I need each and every one of you to work 24/7, 365, so I can win this primary and I can win the general election, so we'll have at least one Secretary of State among 50 states that will have the guts to stand up for your rights, for your constitutional freedoms, to tell the person sitting in the White House, where is your birth certificate? Why are you even there? And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, even if he were to have a birth certificate, natural born citizen means not only born in the country, but it also means born to parents who are citizens of that country. That's the definition of Emer Devatel that was used by the framers of the Constitution. That's the definition that was used by John A. Bingham, frame of the 14th Amendment, and that's the definition that was used just a year ago by our Senate that unanimously decided that John McCain was eligible because he was born in the zone of Panama Canal, which was a U.S. territory, to two U.S. parents. Obama's father was never a citizen, and therefore he never qualified. Ladies and gentlemen, I want a show of hands. How many of you is willing to help me to take back our freedoms? Please, I want to see a show of hands. Thank you. Thank you.